Russia attacked Kyiv on one of the most violent nights since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. The city that had endured countless air raids since 2022 once again found itself under fire, with residents waking to explosions, sirens, and the terrifying sound of drones buzzing overhead. This time, however, Ukraine's answer came almost instantly. The retaliation was swift, deliberate, and brutal, marking yet another turning point in a war defined by escalation, destruction, and resilience. Kyiv has long been the symbolic heart of Ukraine. Its streets carry the weight of history, its skyline a mixture of Soviet-era architecture, modern glass towers, and churches with golden domes that shine in the sun. For Russia, striking Kyiv has always been about more than military targets. It is an attempt to crush the spirit of a nation, to show dominance not just on the battlefield but over the identity of Ukraine itself. Every missile aimed at Kyiv is meant to send a message: nowhere is safe. Yet each time, Ukraine finds ways to answer, reminding the world and Moscow that the capital stands defiant. In the years leading up to September 2025, the frequency and intensity of Russian attacks on Kyiv had grown steadily. In April 2025, Russia launched one of its largest aerial barrages against the capital, combining cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and Iranian-made drones in a single night of destruction. 13 people were killed, more than 90 wounded. Apartment blocks burned, and windows shattered for miles around. For many, this attack felt like a cruel escalation of what had already been a brutal year. Just weeks earlier, in March, a drone strike had claimed the life of a 5-year-old girl and her father. Fires spread through residential neighborhoods as emergency services struggled to contain the damage. These tragedies became grim reminders of the cost civilians continued to pay. By May 2025, Kyiv faced another massive assault. Hundreds of drones swarmed the skies, accompanied by dozens of missiles. Residents described the night as endless, wave after wave of explosions, air defense batteries firing into the sky, and the earth shaking with every impact. Though Kyiv avoided mass casualties in this instance, other regions were not spared. In Zhytomyr, 3 children died when their homes were struck. The message was unmistakable. The war was entering a new phase, one where aerial bombardments would become larger, deadlier, and harder to predict. June of that year brought further devastation. On the 10th, 7 of Kyiv's 10 districts were hit. Only a week later, on the 17th, a 9-story apartment building collapsed after being struck, killing 28 people and injuring more than 100. Survivors recalled hearing the screams of neighbors trapped beneath rubble, families torn apart in seconds. For Kyivans, these attacks were no longer rare events, they were becoming part of daily life. Air raid sirens that once signaled panic now blended into the background noise of existence, but each strike left fresh scars on the city and its people. July saw even more horror. A drone strike on the 10th killed 2 women and reduced a healthcare center to rubble. Then, on the last day of the month, Russia unleashed an assault that would stand out for its brutality. 28 people were killed, including 3 children. More than 150 others were injured as missiles and drones tore through apartment blocks and even a children's hospital ward. The image of destroyed hospital rooms, toys scattered among debris, and parents searching for their children became one of the most haunting representations of Russia's war on civilians. Just weeks later, in late August, Kyiv faced another record-breaking assault. Nearly 600 drones and over 30 missiles targeted the capital and other regions. The result was catastrophic: 23 civilians killed, among them 4 children, and entire buildings reduced to rubble. A 5-story apartment block collapsed, trapping families inside. International organizations noted with alarm that even diplomatic missions had been hit. Offices of the EU mission and the British Council were damaged, a clear sign that these strikes were not only meant to terrorize Ukrainians but also to challenge the global community watching from afar. These repeated attacks set the stage for what came in early September 2025, the single largest aerial assault since the war began. More than 800 drones, accompanied by over a dozen missiles, were launched at Ukraine. Kyiv was the main target. Explosions echoed across the city, windows shattered, and fires lit up the night sky. The most shocking moment came when a missile struck the Cabinet of Ministers building in the Pekarsky district, setting it ablaze. For the first time, the very center of government power in Ukraine's capital had been directly hit. The attack killed at least 3 civilians, including a mother and her infant child, and injured dozens. Images of the burning building spread rapidly across the world, underlining the sheer scale of Russia's intent to intimidate and destabilize. For Ukrainians, however, this attack was not met with silence or despair. The retaliation came swiftly. Ukrainian drones struck deep into Russian territory, targeting energy infrastructure vital to Moscow's economy. Refineries and sections of the Druzhba oil pipeline were hit, sending a message to Russia that every missile launched at Kyiv would have consequences. Ukraine's choice of targets was strategic. By going after oil and energy assets, it aimed not just to disrupt Russia's military logistics but also to squeeze the very revenue streams that fund the war effort. This was not random revenge, it was calculated economic warfare designed to hurt Russia where it was most vulnerable. The cost of Russia's strikes on Kyiv, however, cannot only be measured in destroyed buildings or disrupted infrastructure. The human toll remains staggering. Between December 2024 and May 2025, United Nations reports documented nearly 1,000 civilian deaths and close to 5,000 injuries, almost all caused by Russian attacks. Beyond that, disturbing reports surfaced of Ukrainian prisoners of war being executed, raising questions about systemic war crimes. The deliberate targeting of hospitals, apartment blocks, and energy facilities added to a growing body of evidence that Russia was violating international humanitarian law. Every new strike seemed to follow a pattern: target civilians, create chaos, and test Ukraine's ability to respond. Yet each time, Ukraine found ways to resist, whether through improving its air defenses or by retaliating against Russian infrastructure. Civilians, caught in the middle, adapted as best they could. Families slept in basements, subway stations once again served as bomb shelters, and children learned to recognize the sounds of drones versus missiles. What had once been extraordinary became tragically ordinary. The international response was swift. President Volodymyr Zelensky, standing before foreign diplomats amid the ruins of the government building, declared that Vladimir Putin was testing the world's resolve. He called for stronger sanctions and harsher measures against Russia, warning that failure to act would only embolden further aggression. European leaders echoed his words. Emmanuel Macron of France described the September assault as a line that demanded consequences. Across the Atlantic, the debate was more complicated. Former U.S. President Donald Trump voiced support for targeting Russia's oil exports, yet hesitated to endorse broad new sanctions, reflecting divisions within Western politics about how best to respond without triggering further global instability. Despite political differences, the condemnation was nearly universal. Humanitarian groups decried the attacks as war crimes. International media broadcast images of burning buildings, injured children, and exhausted rescue workers, ensuring that the world could not ignore what was happening in Kyiv. But words of condemnation, as Ukrainians often pointed out, did little to stop missiles in the air. For those living under bombardment, actions mattered more than statements. The cycle of escalation carried dangerous implications. Each strike by Russia prompted a retaliatory attack by Ukraine, and neither side showed signs of slowing down. Analysts warned that future assaults could involve over 1,000 drones in a single day, pushing the limits of air defense systems and threatening even greater destruction. The reliance on drones in particular marked a new phase of warfare. These weapons, cheaper than missiles and harder to detect, flooded the skies in numbers that overwhelmed traditional defenses. Both sides were investing heavily in drone technology, ensuring that the war of the future would be fought as much by machines as by soldiers. Through all this devastation, Kyiv's people endured. Stories emerged of neighbors forming volunteer brigades to clear rubble, of doctors working around the clock in makeshift hospital wards, of teachers holding classes in underground shelters to give children a sense of normalcy. Despite the destruction, resilience became Kyiv's most powerful weapon. Each act of defiance, whether rebuilding a home or raising the Ukrainian flag over a damaged government building, sent a clear message: Russia could attack, but it could not break the spirit of Ukraine's capital. The night Russia attacked Kyiv with its largest barrage yet will be remembered not only for the scale of destruction but also for the swiftness of Ukraine's response. By striking Russian oil infrastructure, Ukraine proved it would not simply endure attacks in silence. The cycle was brutal, but it was also revealing. Every missile and drone launched by Russia was met with determination, resistance, and retaliation. As the war grinds on, the world watches with unease. Kyiv remains both a target and a symbol. For Russia, it represents the heart of the nation it seeks to subjugate. For Ukraine, it embodies resilience, independence, and the will to fight back. And for the international community, Kyiv stands as a reminder that the fate of one city can carry consequences far beyond its borders. The reality of this conflict is simple and devastating. Russia attacks, Ukraine responds, and civilians pay the highest price. Yet within that cycle lies a deeper truth. Each attack intended to weaken Ukraine has instead strengthened its resolve. Each attempt to terrorize has only galvanized its people. And each time Russia tries to destroy Kyiv, the city rises again, defiant, unbroken, and ready to strike back.